and the wonderful players that we'll be seeing today. This is interesting. I thought this was going to be Oreos versus Link, but instead I see LionHeart and literally the entire House of the Trading Post community. How could you take the entire House of the Trading Post community and embody them into a single player? I want to know what sort of science experiments you did on me and everybody else to morph us into one player. This is going to be so weird. Did you stick us together using stitching or Play-Doh? How did you morph us into one player? The House of the Trading Post is an entire country, not a single being. Unless you consider the god of HOTP, which would be Revnak, of course. He's an entire being, but other than that, the House of the Trading Post spans planets and universes, basically. Yeah, pretty much. Anyways, though, I'm going to be checking out the map here, seeing, alright, how's that going to affect this very interesting duel, which is basically the American Revolution, by the way. You know, the good old Americans fighting against the Redcoats, pretty much. This map basically is going to be, I think, a big fight for this trade route, honestly, that seems to be winding somewhat down through the path here, right? You got one trade route here, and then you got one over here. It's sort of situated in a way that both players can grab TPs as needed. British, of course, have the good old Greenwich time card if they wanted to grab these TPs right away. Whereas the United States, as you know, they have many different tools in their belt, basically, because they can age up as many different states, which offers many different types of cards for them. So this should be pretty fun. And by the way, you can't build on ice, right? Ice is not nice for building construction. Just a heads up there for that. But anyways, let's begin our good old story here. So we got the good old United States of America here. And honestly, I think USA has quite a few weapons that they can use against the British, right? They're pretty strong economically, depending on which state they go with. They also have some pretty good early military attacks as well, right? You can go with good old Pennsylvania, get some early sharpshooters and carbine cav, and throw the British for a loop. As they're just sitting there trying to spam all their musketeers out, you can hit them with some long-range skirmisher action. That's always nice. Whereas the British here, the British have their own sort of tools in their belt, pretty much. Yeah. Mainly what the British are best known for, I think, is honestly just having lots of villagers all the time, right? Every time you build one of these manor houses, which is more expensive than a regular house, you get a free settler from it. And that free settler jumps your economy far ahead that of your enemies, pretty much. You know, by probably, I would say, mid to late age 2, maybe even early age 3. We're talking a really big gap in economy if the opponent isn't properly squeezing them like a grape, pretty much, over the map. It can get pretty messy, you know. It can get really messy. Having a British player with 20 villagers over your economy, that just does not do you very well if you don't deal with it. I think the United States are going to have to be very quick on their feet here in age 2 with Pennsylvania, perhaps. Or they're going to have a really good follow-up in age 3, going for some sort of an FF and getting that rolling artillery rolling off the presses, pretty much, and going right for the British. What sort of deck do we see here? It's called L. So is this a winner's deck or a loser's deck? Why would you call it L? Does that mean you're looking to lose here or something? Hopefully not. We want to see some wins here from our players, not losses. So in general, I would say this deck is looking very, I would say combative, honestly. You know, you got the 3 crates here, you got some longbows, you got muskets, you got the mid-game Hussar and Falk shipment. You also have a lot of emphasis on military upgrades, which I find is really helpful here. Both the Yeoman as well as majority of the Musketeer and Hussar upgrades here. Then you got the power plays in Industrial Age with the Gentlemen of the Pike and the rockets. Boy, do these rockets really pack a punch. Definitely don't mess with those rockets. Trust me, you don't want to mess with those rockets, really. They can even send people flying off their horses as well. If you haven't seen it, you should go check it out sometime. It's really fun. Not for the one dealing with it, but the one firing the rocket. Aging up with the governor, Cheerio. The governor is the typical politician I find with the British and their build order. It's pretty good since it grants you a wagon that you can make an outpost with as well as some coin, you know. And since the major British unit is the good old musketeer, it technically gives you enough coin to get out 4 musketeers once that barracks comes right down, which I think is a pretty good deal in my opinion. Whereas the United States are going to be going up with Virginia. This is very interesting. We rarely ever see USA go for anything other than Delaware and Pennsylvania. So this is offering up some very interesting situations, to say the least here. Most definitely. Definitely looking forward to this one. Oh, wait a second. I just got an alert from someone. Wait a second. What's this? That's wrong. Wrong recording. It's the wrong recording? Oh. So, it's a phony? It's a falsehood? This isn't a real match? Well, it's a real match, but it's not the match? Very strange. Keep playing it. Alright, may as well. Yeah, it's okay. You're very lucky today. You get to see more than you normally do. So, let's keep watching it. Yeah, so, Virginia. Good old Virginia. This is going to be a very interesting one. I wonder if Virginia is going to be a really powerful age-up option against the British here. It's not one that I'm used to seeing. And what sorts of cards do they get with that? They get Virginia Plan. This card grants you 2 shipments to spend. So basically the same as the Victoria Iron Cross and Wars of Liberty for the British. Same idea. And then coal per Minutemen. All existing TCs spawn 6 Minutemen, and they retain their hit points 75% longer. Ooh, that's pretty interesting, yeah. So basically you could possibly spam out a bunch of Minutemen at your opponent if you wanted to, right? Yeah, that could be very powerful, I think, to say the least. But we'll see, though. We'll see how it turns out. Going right away with the Longbowmen, pretty much. Good old Robin Hood tactics. You're gonna need either hussars or some state militia to shoot this away for sure. Most definitely. Going away in defensive mode, holding their bows very close to themselves. Oh, here comes the state capital. Just this lone group of archers right now. Statehood, Virginia Plan. Now, this card, from what I can tell you from playing Wars of Liberty and the British, with their variant of it, is very powerful, because basically what it does is, it basically allows you to send a lot of units at your enemy, effectively. Like if you have a deck full of units, pretty much, which this one doesn't, but you got some nice improvements, pretty much. What you can do is, let's say you had 6 regulars here, and you had the state militia. What you would be able to do with this is basically say, I could send out 8 state militia and then 6 regulars after that. But in this case, what you would probably be doing is getting state militia here and then getting the range improved on them right after that, basically. I find it's more useful to get in later ages, personally. You know, the fact that LionHeart here is getting it now makes me think it's not that great, because you can get shipments a lot easier at this stage in the game. It's a lot better once you get to mid-game in Age 3, and you can potentially roll out like 5 Gatling guns at your opponent instead of 3. To me, that seems like the proper usage of it, but it's a lot different in Definitive Edition for sure, because it is available as soon as Age 2 instead of Age 3. We'll see, though. We'll see how it turns out. I wonder if British are going to keep going long. Yeah, they're going to keep going Archer here. United States are going to have to start moving back towards this mine over here, because otherwise they're going to keep getting picked off by these nasty arrows here from these longbowmen. Also picking up the gang saw upgrade. That's usually recommended for Brits, because not only does it help you with longbow production, since they have a wood cost instead of coin, but, as you know, they have the good old manor house system, and guess what it costs to build a house? Wood, right? You're not going to be making a house out of hamburger meat, right? You literally got to use wood, so you need lots of wood to afford those manor houses, and thus pick up those extra free villagers you need to really get ahead. Oh wow, look at that! Stuck the covered wagon right over here. Will British be able to harass that at all, or are they going to be pretty much all set over there? Very interesting. Oh, settlers also shooting at the longbows as well. Another covered wagon out of the state capital. What is going on here? 3 town centers this early? This is looking pretty deadly, and then you got the rolling artillery coming out, so it's not like this archer's going to be able to stick around for long here. This is getting very spicy very quickly. Oh, calling out the Minutemen as well. Very good choice. You know, it's probably good to front those Gatling guns with at least something, right? Because the thing is, longbowmen have a really exceptional range, and these Gatling guns have a range, I believe, that is shorter than that of the longbowmen. So if you're not careful, the longbowmen can actually snipe down your artillery if you just leave them bare like that. It's good to have at least have like a musketeer or a Minuteman, some sort of range unit to pretty much front those artillery and pressure them a teeny weeny bit pretty much. Also, we see hussars, we see pikemen. This could be pretty dangerous if United States are not careful. If they can let the Gats survive, though, they're in pretty good shape, I think. And then they're going to be shipping in the carbine cavalry. Pretty good option. It's a light cavalry, so not only is it good for shooting down hussars, but it can kite against pikemen. It can shoot at the longbows, but it won't last very long against them, obviously, since longbows and other archer units typically have multipliers against the light cavalry class, so you have to be totally careful with that. Technically, pikes can destroy carbine cav as well, but they're a lot slower than them, so the carbine cav, unless you're idling like crazy, are going to be able to kite yourself out of that situation pretty easily. He's going to go for the top town center here, because that's the easiest one to pick after, I think. Oh, upgraded the Minutemen to the Marines. Very powerful choice here. This is going to make a big difference. Big difference. One more Gatling gun alive. Takes out the hussars. And now the infantry are in really big trouble here. Longbowmen will not last against these Marines at all. As you can see here, Marines do not have the heavy infantry tag, thus longbowmen won't enjoy any multipliers against them. Not at all. And now musketeers are also going to get wiped out as well. This United States is looking pretty formidable, and they're getting pretty close to shipment number 2 in Age 3, it looks like. Well, actually, it would be shipment number 5. Yeah. Boy, are we really behind. Probably going to be sending in 2 Gatling guns, I think, alongside this nice mass over here. And that should basically grant the United States a really good grouping to go for a push, I think. You know? You got the Marines, you got the carbine cav, you got the mass of infantry and so forth to protect the Gats, so you may as well go for a push now and just finish off the Brits now. Yeah. The only thing that's really giving United States an edge over the Brits right now is their technological advancement in Age 3. If they let the British get up in age with that bigger economy of villagers, then you're really going to have some problems, right? This is why, in fact, the British still have a bigger score over the United States regardless of their age advancement, is because while they're an age behind, and behind in techs and all that, they still have the larger mass of villagers through their manor house mechanic. Constructing all those manor houses gives them up to 20 free villagers over the course of that process, which really puts you ahead. And picking up the Kentucky hunters as well gives you about 5 of the owl shoots, and you also get a number of the sharpshooters as well. So outlaw skirmishers and regular skirmishers to go in for that attack. The neat thing about the sharpshooters for USA is, unlike the normal skirmisher, they have about 22 range, which is actually on par with that of the longbowmen, actually. So they can go toe-to-toe with the longbows in terms of range, which definitely gives them an edge when they're dealing with that sort of situation. Making a move on this frontal outpost first, and then they'll probably be attacking their production buildings. British are going to have to build a pretty sizable mass here and keep them alive, I think. Which is going to be increasingly hard once the Gatling guns are sent in, pretty much, right? Because right now, still one Gatling gun since they did go with the Kentucky Hunters, but I'm imagining on the next shipment we're going to be seeing 2 more Gatling guns coming out with that good old rolling artillery shipment. Pretty much, and I think at that point, you're going to have some serious problems with the British at surviving this, honestly. Going after this Rex now. It's really looking a bit dicey for the House of the Trading Post community. House of the Trading Post community, hurry up, do something, save us, save us all. You're telling me the whole entire House of the Trading Post community embodied in this one being can't stand up against one lion-hearted opponent here? Very scary if you ask me, you know. Again, totally outplayed here in these really tough units. Totally, I mean. See how it goes at this. I mean, look, the guy's literally got an actual astronaut in his army, and what you got, just a bunch of archers like Robin Hood going tally-ho against him? No wonder you're falling apart here. Total mess overall, I would say. Let's see. What's the resource? So British do make it to H3, and they're going to be shipping some Falcons right to the area there. Making the good old Ohio comeback at this point. Nice. One Falcon will be sniped, though. And you do have to be careful, since those skirms in the back there can still do quite a bit of damage against it. The one Falcon barely surviving, though. This is going to make a bit of a difference, I think, in terms of the combat here. Because now the British do indeed have one piece of artillery themselves, which could potentially be used to knock out one of the Gatling guns, I think. For sure. Now USA is probably thinking, what do I do now? You had this very large advantage in military, right? All these advanced units, but now you're sitting with the teeny-weeny army, and British now have the opening to start picking up their veteran upgrades, which they already started to do with the muskets, and they're probably going to do with the longbows as well. Picking up some of those combat cards on the side along with that. So all USA can do at this point is just wave around some state militia, some sharpshooters, some owl shoots, and try to formulate some sort of defense here. British, I think, at this point are in a pretty clear edge. Sin with a pretty 58... How many villagers would that be on the field? Like 58 villagers coming? Quite huge, actually. And how about manors? Yep, they got all the manor houses. Almost 60 villagers on the British side. This is when British become a unstoppable behemoth, you know. They got the same tech advantages that you do, and then they have an even larger villager mass. So British have a lot of wiggle room at this point to just throw big armies at you and to make you suffer. This is probably the worst nightmare of the U.S. at this point. Like I said before, Falk was going to be used to try to crush one of the Gatlings, which looked like it did a little bit there. Almost taking this one out. Should make it a softer target for the longbows to deal with. Which reminds me, should probably get some Yaum in here for these longbows. Gives them a pretty good range against artillery, even further than they normally do. And then they'll also allow them to get some extra arrows in against the infantry as well. Trying to cause some pressure up here with the veteran Hussars. I love it. Going for culverins. Culverins are going to be an absolute disaster for these Gatling guns. You thought the Falconet was bad, just wait till these culverins with their anti-artillery multipliers get added into the mix. It's just not going to be good. I think we've seen a dynamic shift in this match. Before it looked like USA had the total advantage, but now the British have the total advantage. You know, they got the unit numbers and the upgrades to boot. Well, get that culverin over. I'm going to be watching this culverin very carefully to see how well it shoots here. It's slowly creeping in with the bombard mode. Slow and steady wins the race. And more likely your opponent will leave one of their Gatling guns bare to get hit by it. The problem with going out of limber and bombard mode is you have that little animation time, right, where the horse comes off and they have to spin the can around before they shoot it. The advantage of keeping the can in bombard mode is, while it is slower moving forward, it means as soon as it can lock onto a target, you can shoot instantly with it. Prevent the enemy from targeting the culverin while it's going into that transitional stage. Something to keep in mind when you're using artillery micro. Picking up cavalry combat. These Hussars are going to become a beast of a unit now with even more HP and also some improved attack. Picking up the arsenal technology, the cavalry cuirass. Hussars will have even more HP. Do they have the cavalry hit points yet? Nope, that's totally a consideration as well. Because the thing is, what makes Hussars a real threat is mostly their hit points. You know, they're these big behemoth tanks of units that makes the skirmishers really suffer, because not only do they suffer a malus when they're fighting them, but the Hussars have pierce armor and they have high HP. So it really takes forever for a group of skirms to take down even a handful of Hussars, really, if the numbers match what they should be. Trying to move in with the Polish Hussar shipment. Pulowski's battalion there. Absolute destruction. Look at these Hussars just soaking up all these bullets from the guns and the Gatlings here. Trying to counter with his own culverins, and looks like it's not enough, pretty much. Not enough army there. No matter what you do with these culves, you're not going to be able to sustain much of an army that much longer. Especially with this little res here. Yeah, this is British. This is USA. This is what makes British a serious threat. Always has the most resources, because they're literally working with 20 plus villagers over you at all times when they're doing the right thing. And then in military at that point, you know, they even out with you no matter what you're doing, because they're able to just have so many units that it eventually evens out and they gradually start climbing over your back in terms of what's happening, pretty much. Yeah. Awesome. So now we're going to get to the real show, I believe. Whatever that is. Yeah, whatever that is. So I'm going to have to look over here and see what our games really are. Hopefully you enjoyed that little pre-presentation, though. It's probably like going to the movie theater for you, and, you know, like those Disney movies where they play the short before they play the actual film. That's sort of what we did today, you know. Before you watch the tough Oreo cookie go up against the guy with big ears and green tights, you got to watch LionHeart face against literally the entire House of the Trading Post community embodied in one living soul. So that's an experience I don't think most people get to enjoy usually.